Hello everyone, Amit Kumar Bose, welcome you on behalf of Analog IAS Academy, Hyderabad and Bangalore to this Mains 2022 International Relations Question Answer Discussion session. As expected this year, there were four questions asked, question number 9, 10, 19, 20. That's the exact pattern as the way UPSC asked questions. Two questions were of 10 markers, two questions were of 30 markers. Again, the same pattern, 50 marks out of 250 for international relations. That's how the paper was set this time as well, right? One thing I would very happily I would like to state that at least three questions out of the four they're directly from our class discussion, which I genuinely take pride of in accepting and in stating here. Now the question is, if we look at the questions, guys, I'll be looking into the sheet in front of me because it is here only that I have the questions printed. The first question, India. This is question number 9 of the paper. Okay, and a 10 marker. India is an age-old friend of Sri Lanka. Discuss India's role in the recent crisis in Sri Lanka in the light of the preceding statement. Now, if we look at this particular statement or this particular question, what do we realize? That the way India has been helping Sri Lanka in the recent times, how those helps. We know what kind of crisis Sri Lanka is going from since February this year, right? We know the regime change that also happened. The present Sri Lankan president, Ranil Wickremesinghe, he is a long-term friend of India. So in that respect, the role that has been played by India, that has been no doubt very significant. At the same point of time, we must not be forgetting the issue of the Chinese spy ship that came to Sri Lanka, that docked in Sri Lanka in the month of August. Anyway, but in spite of all of that thing, the assistance that was provided by India to Sri Lanka, that's no doubt noteworthy. See, China, they have been arm twisting Sri Lanka since long. Even when this crisis happened, China gave Sri Lanka some $1.5 billion as currency swap. But the problem is, Sri Lanka can only use that $1.5 billion of currency swap given by China to Sri Lanka if they have sufficient amount of reserves, sufficient amount of foreign exchange reserve for next 3 months, which Sri Lanka does not have. The total foreign exchange reserve of Sri Lanka in the month of June, July, when this discussion was taking place, was standing something around $1.8 billion. Okay. $1.5 billion was given by China. So the remaining amount that was actually in the hands of the Sri Lankan government was $300 million, right? Every month, Sri Lanka requires something around $669 million for its imports to meet up the import requirements. So you can easily understand they didn't have the money, which was sufficient amount of reserve for next 3 months. So Sri Lanka could not use even a single dollar from the amount of assistance that was given by China. It was in that backdrop that India's assistance reached Sri Lanka. What was the total amount of assistance given by India? Something to the tune of $3.8 billion, right? Out of which $1 billion was directly a concessional loan that was given by India to Sri Lanka. Then came $500 million of credit line, which India gave to Sri Lanka to buy petroleum, to go for petroleum purchases. India also supplied some 40,000 metric tons of oil to Sri Lanka. Then at the same point of time, $400 million was provided through SARC currency swap, right? Then another $1 billion, which was supposed to be paid by Sri Lanka to India till March 2022. That amount was deferred further so that the Sri Lankans don't have to pay immediately, right? In addition to that, huge amount of assistance in the form of medicine, food supply, right? All these things went. Even the state of Tamil Nadu, they pitched in, right? They gave an assistance amount to $16 million US dollars, some 40,000 metric tons of rice, 500 metric tons of milk powder, medicines, and all of these things to the various hospitals in Sri Lanka. Right. Given this huge amount of assistance, this $3.8 billion of assistance that was given by India, it was in that respect that this question was asked. Okay. I don't expect you to remember all the details, all the nitty-gritties, but at least this aspect that India even deferred the loan payment and the backdrop in which this assistance is going, that is very significant. Now, this is not the first time that India came to help out Sri Lanka. Even previously, we have seen in 2015, we have seen how India helped Sri Lanka. And this has been happening all along. Being neighbors, being the two neighbors, and as the process started with the Gujarat Doctrine, the way India has tried to stand by all the neighboring countries in and around, we have been seeing this tradition going on, right? So in that respect, we need to look at this particular question. Now the thing is, this question is a 10 marker, so you can only write 150 words. Now, obviously, we cannot write exactly in 150 words. So there is a margin amount of plus minus 10%. So whatever you write should be in between 135 words to 165 words, right? So that's the context which in which this answer should be written. Now, as I stated earlier, this question actually by chance this question was discussed in the class in analog. So yes, so we do take the credit here that we have been able to predict this question. This was anticipated, and it was quite obvious this question to be asked, right? Now I'm going for the next question, the second question, which is question number 10 of the paper, right? I'm reading the question. Do you think that BIMSTEC is a parallel organization like SARC? What are the similarities and dissimilarities between the two? How are Indian foreign policy objectives realized by forming the new organization? Now, this is not the first time this kind of a question has been asked. Okay. Uh, Even previously, 2015 or 16, I don't remember the exact year when we have seen this kind of a question being asked. Okay. At that point of time, the question was more about whether we are moving away from SARC to BIMSTEC or not. Uh, but anyway, this option was there, and this is predominantly happening given the focus that India is giving to BIMSTEC in the recent times. Now, let us try and understand. Yes, BIMSTEC and SARC, they are parallel organizations, right? Whether in terms of the geographical area, in terms of population, in terms of the size of the GDP of the area, they too are genuinely parallel. In fact, when we look at BIMSTEC, number of policymakers, number of experts, they call BIMSTEC as SARC minus Pakistan. So in that sense, no doubt, uh, we can understand that these two organizations, they are parallel organizations. Okay. If we talk about similarities and dissimilarities, again, I'm looking at predominantly grouping of developing and least developed countries, which is both. SARC is also a grouping of developing and least developed countries. India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, which are developing nations. Least developed nations are Bangladesh, Nepal, Bhutan, Maldives, Afghanistan. They are the least developed nations. Here in that's in SARC. In case of BIMSTEC, we know that India, Thailand, right? Sri Lanka, these are the developing nations. And again, Bangladesh, Nepal, Bhutan, and Myanmar. These four are the least developed nations, right? So in that sense, this similarity we can see. At the same point of time, I can also see we have been talking about the similarities in terms of uh, the the geographical spread, population size of GDP. I'm looking at similarities, which I talked about in the previous to answer the previous question, that is whether they are parallel or not. There also lies the similarities. If I have to talk about the dissimilarities, then I must be stating that the kind of competition that we see in SARC, competition between India and Pakistan, that is absent here in BIMSTEC, right? As a result, BIMSTEC has more potential to grow. In BIMSTEC, I'm looking at more intention of the countries to cooperate with each other and to ensure growth and development in that sense. At the same point of time, the way the 14 focus areas, they have been distributed among various member nations in BIMSTEC, and the member nations, they are given the status of lead nations, and then they are asked, okay, fine, you take the responsibility, you go along, you try to develop things. So in that sense, BIMSTEC is far more well organized than SARC to carry forward with the effort of development, right? So that's dissimilarity. On the other hand, if I talk about the last segment, which is how are Indian foreign policy objectives realized by forming this new organization? I must admit, this is not a new organization. This organization was actually formed uh, way back in 1997. Okay. Now, from 1997, this organization is functioning. 2004, the first summit would take place in Bangkok. Then, subsequently, 2008, India. 2014, uh, it would happen in uh, Myanmar, and gradually it would be happening, right? 2000 after 2014, 2016, India would unofficially. It was not a summit actually. On the sidelines of the BRICS summit, India would actually invite the BIMSTEC countries as outreach partners. So that too happened. Fine. Then 2018, the summit of BIMSTEC, and gradually things have been going on. So in that sense, this is not exactly a new organization, but yes, this organization is allowing India to position itself as one of the leaders of the region. And at the same point of time, India is also being able to promote its idea of win-win or inclusive development and growth, which India is also trying to showcase with the help of AAGC and other such initiatives, right? The formula of India of win-win, that's very much visible here, right? And obviously, no doubt, if the region grows, if BIMSTEC becomes the engine of growth in the region, it's not just India. Along with India, all the friendly nations in our neighborhood, they also grow, right? And this also helps India in counterbalancing China, counterbalancing the weight of China in the region, right? So in that sense, you can easily understand how significant this question is. Again, 150 words question answer, because this is a 10 marker. My suggestion is write in 3 paragraphs. In each paragraph, try to answer each dimension of this question. The question is divided into three parts, right? The first part being, I'm again reading. The first part is, do you think that BIMSTEC is a parallel organization like SARC? Write 1 paragraph on that. Done. Then the second paragraph would be, what are the similarities and dissimilarities between the two? I talked about that. That should be the second paragraph. And then comes, how are India's foreign policy objectives realized by forming the new organization? So that's the third paragraph. Don't try to waste much words on introduction and conclusion here, because you don't have that liberty. Again, 150 words, exact 150 words you cannot write. So keep it in between 135 to 165. Clear? But try to adhere to the word limit. Don't exceed the word limit. Okay. Next comes, now I must say why I'm suggesting not to exceed the word limit. There is a particular reason behind this. See, if you exceed the word limit, you lose not only space, and the word limit increases. No, not just that. You're also losing on precious time. So other questions, the opportunity to write other questions, you're compromising on that as well. So please try to adhere to the word limit only. Okay. I'm coming to the next question. That is a third question for international relations. Actually, question number 19 of the paper. It reads, how will I2U2 grouping? I2U2 is India, Israel, UAE, and USA. How will I2U2 grouping transform India's position in global politics? This grouping, just like Quad, this grouping is being looked at as an initiative by India, USA, UAE, and Israel as an anti-Chinese uh, grouping there. See, in the recent times, we have been seeing how China was trying to flex its muscles in that region, right? A new friendship kind of or alliance kind of was developing between China, Russia, and Iran, right? Now, for India, Iran is not such a big concern, because to India, Iran is also a friendly nation. Maybe right now things are not exactly as we want them to be, but as we know, India is also working on that. Negotiations are going on between India and Iran once again. If India can start buying oil from Iran, in that respect, things are going on. Okay, so from that perspective, I'm looking at the discussion here. Fine. So, but for Israel, Iran is a concern. For UAE, Iran is a concern. But not only that, at the same point of time, for UAE, China is also a concern. Why China is a concern? the way UAE has been able to develop Dubai as one of the centers of finances in the world. After New York, if we may say, today it's not Hong Kong, rather it's Dubai, which is the second financial capital of the world, especially the financial capital of the Eastern world, right? So in that sense, China is trying to challenge that and is trying to change it. Previously, Hong Kong was a financial capital of the Eastern world. Dubai has changed that. So in that sense, you can easily understand the possibility of threat that the UAE leadership they feel from the Chinese. So that too is there. Also, the huge amount of investment by the Chinese firms in oil sector. That's also a matter of concern in terms of sovereignty and others for UAE, for USA, obviously, for India, for Israel, right? So in that sense, this grouping is being looked at. This is also being called the Quad of West Asia, or the Quad of that side, right? So you can easily understand in which sense they are talking about India's positioning in global politics, in geopolitics, right? So that's the significance of I2U2. Now, this question that gives us the scope of flexing the muscle a little bit, because this is a 15 marker, 250 words answer, where we can easily use, say, in between 225 words to 75 words. Again, the margin should be plus minus 10%. Okay, guys. So that way we can easily write this answer here. So, and it also gives us that opportunity. Now, even these three questions, question number 9, 10, and 19, these three which we discussed till now, yes, we anticipated these three questions this time, and we discussed them in the class as well. But the next question, genuinely, yes, even I was not anticipating this question to be raised this time. Question number 20, it reads, clean energy is the order of the day. Describe briefly India's changing policy towards climate change in various international fora in the context of geopolitics. We know India is an aspiring superpower, right? In that respect, India has been trying to position itself as one of the leaders, right? Now, it was in 2015 during COP21, or Paris Climate Conference, that India and France jointly they announced IAS, International Solar Alliance. India also gave the land near Manesar in Haryana to construct the headquarters for International Solar Alliance. India gave a funding of $100 million to International Solar Alliance. India and France are jointly making initiatives to further develop, further boost the funding of International Solar Alliance. At the same point of time, in India, now please try and understand, India is one of the global leaders in solar technology, right? Yep, in some areas we may not be completely self-sufficient, or at least we might be lacking behind the USA, but so not self-sufficient is not the right word. Maybe we are lacking behind in some of the areas in terms of technology from USA, but ordinarily India is quite an advanced country in terms of solar technology, harnessing the ability of harnessing the solar power. India is quite capable in that sense, right? So here comes the idea of ISA. At the same point of time, we know about the geothermal energy that India is trying to harness from number of hot springs in Ladakh region. Then the way we are trying to use the ocean current in Khambat region. So a lot in a lot of areas, experimentation is going on about the alternative source of energy. And yes, India is trying to use this mode of alternative energy to help out the developing and least developed worlds. In fact, the idea for International Solar Alliance is that majority of the developing and least developed nations, they're lying within the tropics, in between Tropic of Cancer to Tropic of Capricorn, right? And this area is properly endowed with solar power, or right. So that's why the idea that why don't we harness this solar energy? That's where the idea came. Clear? So in that sense, we should be looking at this particular question. And this is again giving India a proper and credible opportunity to show its leadership quality. Okay. So in that sense, we should be looking at these questions. Now, this question I genuinely didn't expect this time, but fine, it came. So these are the 4 questions which have been asked by UPSC this time in international relations. I hope I have been able to give you at least quite a handsome understanding of the questions and the way to approach these answers. Uh, Hope you have been benefited from this, right? Thank you. Thank you all.